Welcome back to DIY Mixers Crew. Today we have a good topic, guys. We got a few guests here, a couple guests here that are awesome. So we're going to be talking about the FDA versus vaping. Fact or fiction. We're going to be laying down some stuff. We're going to be talking about the seizures, the tobacco-21, the flavor bans, the PMTAs. You know, if you guys have any questions out in the chat, please feel free to ask us. I tell you, we got two great educated folks in here today that are going to answer all your questions. So we got Mike Peterson and Fresh. How you guys doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Ready to get angry.
Yeah, right there with you, dude.
Awesome. Okay. Back here, make sure we got everything rolling. So real quick, guys. So first of all, what is this? You know, I caught this on Facebook. I first seen it from a share on Facebook from Mike about the FDA releasing this information about vaping and seizures. I want to know what this is all about. So, you know, please somebody explain it to me and what this is all about. Mike, if you want to start about this.
This is one of those things, and it is paramount that I would tell people you're looking at an ungodly corporation, which is what the FDA is. Mm-hmm. They make money. They're making money. And they're trying to steer people away from vaping and back to smoking. Okay. They have done so from day one. They have, if you take a look at any of the vaping market, they started with the deeming regulations back in 2016. They actually started a little bit before that. They have slowly, progressively tightened the noose around vaping. Well, Scott Gottlieb was on his way out the door. He left last Friday. So now they've got this interim guy. But before Gottlieb left, he threw a couple of bombshells out there. And one of them was this bullshit seizure story. It was a press release that the FDA put out, and their press release normally has just some nice wording. This thing is like bold print, oh my God, headline grabbing material, which was picked up by every news agency, every corporation, every tobacco-free kids, every ants products people around the globe. And they said in their headline, FDA's ongoing scientific investigation of potential safety issue related to seizures reported following e-cigarette use, particularly in youth and young adults. That was their headline. And it caused a massive outrage across, I don't know how many platforms, and including DIY, because I was listening to Fresh, and he's like, oh my God, I know what he means. What they did not bother to tell you, if you scroll down through their press release, you can see what they actually said. This came from the Poison Control Centers had identified a total of 35 reported cases of seizures following the use of e-cigarettes between 2010 and 2019. 35 cases in 9 years. That's where all this really blew up, because everybody grabbed hold of the headline and nobody bothered to read the small print further on down the page. But beyond that was the second part that proves that the FDA is just trying to take their fist and shove it so far up your anal orifice it's not even funny. Okay? Yeah, big clenched fist, bend over, here it comes. Underneath that, they turn around and they said, and I will quote, "We want to be clear that we don't yet know if there's a direct relationship between the use of e-cigarettes and a risk of seizure. We can't yet say for certain that e-cigarettes are causing these seizures." Yep. I mean, come on, folks. All they did was turn around and make this giant propaganda bullshit headline, and then they'll go, oh, well, there were 35 cases over 9 years, and we're going to investigate that because we think it's important. And well, frankly, we really don't even know if this is true or not.
Yep, exactly.
This is what the FDA is trying to do. Fresh, I'm going to turn it over to you because there's a couple other points that I want to make, but I want to hear what you've got on your end.
Yeah, and when you go in and actually look at the data sample that they present, like there's people in the survey that already had seizure disorders. And so, I mean, you apply a stimulant to a seizure disorder, you know, you might wind up with a seizure, you might not. So, I mean, vaping could indirectly be related to it, but I mean, you trace it back to the root cause, and the root cause is that, you know, the majority of these people that in 35 cases over 9 years already had something going on. They already had something going on. The rest of the cases, we don't know what the person had in their atomizer. Like, we don't know if it was Wayne from DIY or Die brought up the synthetic nicotines, vaping or synthetic marijuana, which is actually a pretty popular thing. Vaping, you know, vaping something like sea liquids, you know, you could, you know, so that can cause a seizure because it was never intended to be used that way. You know, so you're using a product with another product that was never approved to be used in the initial product. And so when you trace it down, when you trace these numbers down, like the actual data says absolutely nothing. It says absolutely nothing about vaping. And this has been the ongoing thing, is that they keep trying over and over and over again to find something wrong with vaping, and they can't. And so they produce these headlines. And if you've been hanging out on my shows for a while, you know that kind of how this circle works. You know, the FDA funds someone to do a survey or to do a study of something, and they tell them that these are the results we're looking for. And of course, you know, you give millions of dollars to someone, tell them, hey, this is what we're looking for. They're going to try their darndest to produce the results that you're looking for. And so in turn, this college does this study, and they release this data out to like Tobacco Free Kids, Bloomberg, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, all these companies that have lined up, or all these big conglomerates that have lined up in line against vaping, because, you know, it's for the kids. We got to save the kids. And, you know, they produce these headlines and they push them out, and these news agencies pick these things up, like what the FDA did. The FDA, you know, they put out this fear-inducing headline. I guarantee they're getting more money from Congress now, because look at everything that we did. Look at everything that we were able to produce in the media. We're able to get the reaction. We're able to get a reaction out of the people. And so that's the circle. That's the circle right there. FDA gives money to someone to do a study. The study puts the data out. These conglomerates, charities, whatever they're calling themselves, they push the data out. They get these headlines. FDA is able to go back to Congress and say, look at everything that we're doing. Give us more money. And so that's the circle. That's the circle. And this is just another example of the circle of fear that they've got in action. And I really, like, it just boggles my mind that vaping somehow got caught up in this. I mean, I think the first mistake was probably mislabeling everything as e-cigarettes. You know, if we had just called it like nicotine vaporizers at the beginning, you know, half of the problems would have gone away. But because they see this as something just so awful, and they can't prove that there's anything wrong with it. Like the big study that came out last week about air quality in a vape shop, where they went in California, of all fucking places. Yep. They go into a vape shop in California, they test the air quality. They find absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is no harm in secondhand vapor in this place that was just vape the fuck out. But we don't hear anything about that. We don't hear the fact that secondhand vapor does nothing to anybody. Doesn't do anything to babies, doesn't do anything to pets, doesn't do anything to anybody around you except for make them smell better. We don't hear about this. And this came out of California. California has pretty blatantly been anti-vaping. You know, well, at least the majority of like the western cities where the majority of people are. The majority of those cities have lined up in the anti-vaping campaign just because it became a party issue. And that's another unfortunate thing for vaping, is when it became a party issue. And so you see a lot of heavily democratic states just wailing away on vaping and doing everything they can. And it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous what's been going on. And the seizure thing is, like I said, it's just the next thing in line, just the next straw that they're grasping at. And they have to put down at the bottom where nobody reads, we don't actually have any connection with vaping. We're just looking at it. They did the same. They're also investigating avocados for seizures. So, you know, be careful enjoying your guacamole, everybody. You might tip over foaming at the fucking mouth if you enjoy your guacamole too hard. So I'm gonna stop for a minute.
So, there was a piece that I picked up. The AVA, Greg Conley, came out and did a rebuttal in a lot of
handsome man.
Yep. Awesome guy. He came out and he said, and he quoted things from the CDC, and I'm going to read through just a little bit of this. He said, according to the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 3 million adults and 470,000 children suffer from epilepsy or seizures in the United States. Therefore, it would be expected that some number of e-cigarette users would suffer from seizures regardless of whether they vaped or used no nicotine products at all. And that's going back to what Fresh had said, that some of these people had pre-existing illness or condition, but they got lumped into this 35.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he goes on, Dr. Michael Erickson, the dean of Georgia State University School of Public Health, attempted to inject some caution in the debate. He said, in 35 cases over 10 years, that's 3 to 5 a year with millions of users. So it's a 1 in a million chance, while 1 out of every 2 smokers die from smoking.
Yep.
But
the 50%.
The FDA doesn't want you to think about that.
That's what I was going to ask you. So, did anybody bring up about smoking combustible cigarettes causing seizures in this whole debacle?
No, of course not. Why would they?
Not a single one. And it's funny that you say even going over into combustible tobacco, because you'll also notice that they did not bring up anything about NRT products, lozenges, throat spray, gum, patches. Because even that, from 2008 to 2017, there were 34 reported cases of seizures with those products. Yep. But the FDA doesn't bother to tell you about that either.
They're not investigating that.
They only want to stir the pot of fear about vaping. Yep. That's the only thing. And Gottlieb did it on his way out the door, which means the interim director for the FDA, Mr. Sharpless, has something to pick up and appease Democrats and everybody else by saying, well, I'm going to crack down even harder.
Yep.
So it was basically his last hurrah before he got...
no, his last hurrah is on the way. That hasn't hit. Like he has a partial flavor ban that went to the desk of the president. It hasn't been signed. It hasn't come down yet. But he did that on that's his last hurrah. That's his big. Like I don't know exactly how much is Gottlieb's fault and how much was pressured onto him, because when he came into office, I mean, he really wanted to give everybody a fair shake. Like he tried.
Well,
tried his hardest to do
wasn't he the one that actually had investments in vaping?
Yeah. He actually had investments in vaping, and if I remember correctly, once he got out of those investments, they wound up getting bought up by big tobacco anyway. But that's neither here nor there, because there's been so much outrage created around vaping, and it's a hot button issue now, and it never should have gotten to this point. Like the scientific evidence, that legitimate studies done outside the U.S. where you can't just buy a study and say, hey, make it say this. It's all come down to the same thing, that vaping really doesn't do anything except for, it increases your blood pressure because nicotine is a stimulant. Like there's really not a whole lot that they can say about it.
So we were talking about this offline too, and I was comparing it to the caffeine. And so would you consider
very similar
nicotine and caffeine the same way? And
yes.
and there was a story, like I said, I looked it up online. There was a young man, it was a few years ago, he actually OD'd on caffeine. But you don't see that FDA going after...
I'm sure it happens more often than you'd think with the caffeine pills and everything that are out there.
And he actually died.
Sure that more often than you'd think. Yeah,
he actually died. And I think he had an energy drink, a cup of coffee, and I can't remember what else it was.
Yep.
And
some no-nos.
God.
Yeah. I mean, caffeine and nicotine are both very, very closely related chemically. There's really not a whole lot of difference between the two. I do firmly believe that nicotine's probably a little bit more addictive, but not by much.
See, here's a funny thing. You say addictive, and I would be the guy on the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
Nicotine in and of itself
dependent
doesn't
honestly, is that a better word?
Addictive quality sides. It creates a dependency.
Yeah.
But not an addiction.
Yeah.
There was a video that somebody had alerted me to. Dimitri Agrafiotis had told me about it. and I went and watched it. The guy's name is Dr. Jack Kearney.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a piece, and this was 2 or 3, 4 years ago, about addiction versus dependency and nicotine. And he is an addiction expert. And he even said there are no addictive qualities. Dependency, yes, but addiction, no. And there's another guy, oh God, I can't remember his last name. It did on Regular Watch, is a doctor. His first name is David. I would have to go and look it up. But even he talked about the properties of nicotine and not being addictive and all this other stuff. So it's, caffeine is not an addictive nature. It's a dependent kind of thing.
So yeah, okay, I'll agree with that. Nicotine's more likely to cause a dependency than caffeine.
Well,
Yes.
well, there's a fine line.
Caffeine was on.
There's a fine line there. You have to look at it as it's more of a need, I would say, than an addiction, because, say caffeine versus nicotine, your dependency, your what do you want to call it? Your threshold, like what's the word I'm looking for, Mike? Refresh. Like you need more to satisfy yourself, and that's, I think, is in itself is where it starts to become like you're dependent on it, like your tolerance grows.
Yeah, your tolerance for nicotine and caffeine, and
Increases every use. I would agree. But it does not share addictive qualities of cocaine, heroin.
Well,
opioids.
Wasn't there a study? What is it? Dopamine or something? What is it that it releases in your brain from caffeine that gives you that euphoria effect?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
kind of on a
bad
fence.
day. You're having a bad day. You go out and have your vape or your smoke or whatever you're doing. You do feel a little better about your day. So
yeah,
there's something to be said for that. But yeah, I mean, like I quit caffeine a couple of years back, and it was I had an easier time quitting with vaping than I ever did with caffeine. But that was because I was still taking in that nicotine. But I would compare when I quit cigarettes, using Chantix and things like that. I'd compare it to that. It was, you wake up not feeling good. Your day just doesn't feel right. You don't feel right throughout your day, and eventually, you get headaches, and eventually you get over it. And it takes a couple days. But
how did Chantix work for you, though? Would you say?
I didn't. I had such vivid dreams on that stuff.
Seriously? Wow. So you did.
I really didn't like it, and I was hyper focused on things that I shouldn't have been focused on.
Okay.
That was the other thing about it. Like I would get super focused on something that didn't really matter, and I would get upset about it and start getting angry.
Wow. Okay. So it
was easy for me. It was a lot easier for me to do. I mean, I was an angry person back then anyway. So I mean, I was looking for an excuse to fight somebody anyway.
So you did experience some of the side effects that they talked about then from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have seizures. I'm pretty sure Chantix. I'm pretty sure that's one of their warnings too. Is that Chantix may give you seizures. I know for sure those suicidal ideations. Yeah. And if you already have problems, it can certainly amplify problems.
Wow.
I experienced that.
I've heard a lot of horror stories about Chantix.
Yeah. It's not good stuff.
I won't say as much. I would say, you're looking at a percentage, 10, 15%, maybe 20 horror stories compared to 80%,
Yeah. Where you don't really know, how much of it was things I already had going on that just amplified. Like I said, I was a pretty angry dude back then. I'm pretty even keel these days.
So moving on. Okay. Tobacco-21.
Okay. Oh, Jesus.
I hear Fig, James Jarvis, they're blowing up about this right now. It's getting crazy. What is going on with this?
They want to push it just like they did alcohol and make it 21 years and older, and they don't want the reasoning behind this is that it makes it more difficult for high school kids to wind up with it. They figure that, the kids that have been gone for a couple of years that are actually 21 years old aren't going to buy things for high schoolers, or they will think twice about it. I mean, it's just it's creating a gray market around vaping products, and tobacco products, like it's always done. You know, back when I was in high school, it was 16, and then they actually changed it to 18 while I was in high school. So, you know, it never stopped me for a second. Never ever stopped me for a second to going out and getting what I wanted, whether it was alcohol, tobacco, or whatever illicit substance I was deciding that was going to go in my body that weekend. So
local media, and I would say everywhere for that matter, has their biggest point is that the kids that are in high school now that are turning 18 while they're in school,
yeah,
are what's the problem, and that is their big thing of pushing, that they're buying it for them, is what I'm hearing, Mike.
It's what a lot of media is saying, is that 18, 19, 20-year-olds are creating the straw purchase and turning around and selling, giving whatever.
Yeah, there's some truth to that.
And that's a known fact.
Mm-hmm.
It's also becoming a known fact that Juul is and has pushed this into the forefront and the spotlight. But here's another thing that goes right behind that. What nobody in the media is capturing. Fast forward 1 year from now, and all the states that have done T21, what happens with the statistics now from everybody that is 18, 19, and 20? They now become part of the narrative of the minor usage that they weren't classified as right now, simply because of a change in age and law. Now next year, you're going to see this jump and a spike. Oh my God, it's gone out of proportion. Now we've doubled or tripled the amount of youth that are using tobacco products and vapor. So what they're doing with T21, it won't work. No. T21 does not work. Neither does raising taxes. I'm going to be talking to Lindsay Stroud about that tomorrow. But she's even written an op-ed about it, saying that higher taxes don't work. T21 is not working. No. All they're doing is now mollifying Congress and voters and beginning to create more of a false narrative.
Yep.
So T21, bullshit. And here's a good one for you. You'll absolutely love this. Maryland. Do you guys know what happened in Maryland?
No.
Let's hear.
Passed their T21, right? With an exception of people that are in the military. If you're in the military and you're 18, you can still buy tobacco products. Everybody else, 21.
So and here's another thing too. This is what blows my mind. I read an article somewhere. I don't know where it was. I don't know if it was on Facebook or if it was on the news, that they just passed. They lowered the age for marriage in a state. I think to 17. Was that your?
That was in the state of Ohio. That was one that I posted.
Oh, and okay.
Believe it or not, it actually raised the age from 16 to 17 if you had qualifying reasons or qualifying crap. So you can get married in Ohio at 17.
So you can get married at 17, but yet you can't buy any vape-related stuff until you're 21.
Correct.
Probably.
Blows your mind.
That's right.
Blows your mind.
Well, I mean, I've been, to bring up the military thing, I mean, I've always, all this tobacco 21 stuff, I mean, if you're going to do this, if you're going to raise the age to 21, you have to do it for everything. Like if you're going to call these people minors, they shouldn't be able to go fight. They shouldn't be eligible for selective service. If all these people that are in jail or in trouble for 21, the 21 years and older, you have to go reevaluate every single one of their cases, every single one. Because if you're going to do this, if you're going to make people a minor that they, you've said that you can go fight for your country, but you can't make your own decisions about your life anymore, then you have to qualify them as a minor all the way across the board. Like stop bullshitting around, and just that age, the age of when you're going to be an adult. If you want to do this, raise it to 21. Raise it to 21 across the board for everything. Don't sit there and pick and choose what you want. and say, well, if you're in the military, you can still do this. That makes it okay. Like, it's not okay for his buddies when he's at home for him to go and buy a couple extra packs of smokes and hand them out, and then he gets himself in trouble. Like, that's not okay. None of the tobacco 21 thing. I get it. I understand. I don't see that it'll have an appreciable effect anywhere across the board. People are still going to get what they want. They're still going to go out and buy what they want. Online purchasing, I think, is a bigger issue than tobacco 21. Vape. The majority of the problem is shit vape shops, shit brick and mortar vape shops who are willing to go and sell these things. Same thing with shit convenience stores that are willing to sell to whoever walks in, do whatever you want. Now, that's the problem.
And you're right. The majority of enforcement issues fell into convenience stores, places like Walgreens and whatnot. When they did carding and they did age verification, things like that, most of the shops that they tested passed without any problem. The infringements came from C-stores and other places.
Yeah.
Tobacco 21 for me, I don't care for it, only for the fact that it strips away rights of people for another 3 years.
Yep.
For how many generations? It's been 16 or 18. They raised it to 18. Fine. And like you said, you can join the military. You can go in debt for a house. You can purchase a firearm. You can do many things at 18, but you can't buy something that is a safer alternative to combustible tobacco.
Yep, and they're even taking people's gun rights away.
Yeah.
So truly, that's a topic we really don't want to get into, though.
No, I talked with Larry Sharp about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I was chatting with a couple guys down at the range. And I was like, it started getting pretty heated. So
it's a bad.
Here in Washington State, they're doing some messed up stuff.
So here's a question to add to that. Pigtailing off of what you guys were saying. So, what about the minors, or they were adults, 18, that are regular uses of a nicotine product, whether it be cigarettes or a vaping device, and they need that fix? Going back to the addiction or addictive, granted, they'll probably get it, but it's going to make it harder for them to get that to satisfy their.
I don't think it'll make it much harder. I think it'll make it more expensive. I think the gray market that they create, where people just, their buddy that's 21 goes and buys them their Juul pods, you can jack up the rates because all the 18 and 19-year-olds that were doing it before weren't doing it. That's all you're going to do.
So you think you'll see
I don't see it affecting anything, because the people that we're going to smoke are going to smoke. The people we're going to they scientifically prove that there is a certain portion of the youth that are going to go out and do these things. Like they're just genetically predisposed to getting into these things. But that came out from the FDA.
I would agree. People that vape or smoke, they're going to continue to do so regardless of an age or regardless of what's going on. But here's another shot where the FDA wants to ram it so far up your ass, it's not even funny. Back on April 1st, they came out with a press release that was talking about they're going to have a meeting for new efforts to advance treatment strategies for helping youth addicted to nicotine as a result of. So this plays right into what you're asking about, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying, well, what about the kids that are, and the FDA goes, oh, well, we're going to create a new drug for that. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a treatment for you.
Got some money for you. Got some money for us. We got a treatment for you.
That's where I was going with that.
Right back to big pharma.
Yeah.
And these are the two major players in anything that you talk about the FDA, big tobacco and big pharmaceutical company.
Yep.
Now, do you see a rise in the black market for that? Like going back to what Fresh said, that they're just going to get their buddies that are 21 and jack up the price or resell it. Do you see a rise in the black market of not so much combustibles, because we're all vapors? Do you see it rising?
If you were to take a look at New York, and as I was discussing with Larry Sharp, if you look at New York and you look at the problem that they had of black market cigarettes coming into the state, it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. And New York is pissed because they want to collect that taxation money. So, of course, they're going to crack down on it. So, is there going to be a rise? Potentially, I would say yes. I mean, as a logical, functional adult, I'm not going to sit here, oh my God, no, that's never going to happen. Yeah, that's a crock of shit. Is there going to be some? Sure, there will be.
So
is it going to be enough that it's going to cause a massive problem?
So in turn,
I just think they're just going to. I think it'll just get more expensive.
That's what I'm saying. So in turn, you think that they're going to, once they pass all this crap, that they're just going to keep raising the taxes on vapor products like they do tobacco?
Oh no, I'm talking about the guys that are bringing the guys that are selling illegally.
Oh yeah,
Who have access to it. They're totally just going to raise the prices. I don't know that we'll see a national tax anytime in the near future. I don't think they've figured out what the fuck vaping is yet. So I don't think they've figured out how to tax it as of yet. I certainly think that's coming.
Who hasn't figured it out, Fresh?
The FDA and the U.S. government in general.
Yeah,
they really have no idea how to deal with this.
No, and that goes right back to a point that somebody had made a while ago. Is the FDA, when they came out with deeming regulations, they told people that the industry in and of itself is too large to regulate. And the pathway that they have been doing has been to narrow and wean out clearly all the
they want to regulate. They want to regulate like 5 companies. They don't want to regulate tens of thousands of these little homemade shops. And so they've made it, it just incredibly expensive to get through like the PMTA process. And so you're seeing it happen all the time. You're seeing your favorite companies go out of business, and they sell their recipes off to somebody else, or they consolidate with somebody else. And eventually what it's going to get down to is those big distro companies that, if you trace it up high enough, Big Tobacco actually owns several of them already. So what you're going to see is a consolidation over the next several years of companies, having a big distribution company distribute their recipes and make their recipes, and they still, they get pennies on the dollar that they used to get.
No, there'll be a fire sale before that really gets to it, because nobody's passing the PMTA.
Yeah, you're gonna see fire sales all over the place. People just selling off whatever stock they have, and they've made it impossible for the mom and pops to keep going. And you're also gonna see the gray market there. I hesitate to call it a black market, but it is what it's gonna be what it's gonna be. But you'll see like Facebook groups and stuff popping up all over the place for if you want to get your favorite e-liquid. They're not selling online anymore, but if you go to their Facebook group, and they're going to have, they're going to drop, we've got 30 bottles of this, buy now type thing. You'll see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of that. But
there's 2 quick things. When we're talking about taxes a minute ago, the FDA, they're putting out and spewing all of their shit. But take a look at what each state is doing. 40% tax. The PA went through it. A 40% wholesale and a 40% floor tax.
Yeah.
And they were one of the first states to really mandate it and do it statewide.
And it killed it. It killed it.
It devastated the shit out of PA.
Yeah.
But now take a look, even out in like Oregon, they want to put in a 95% wholesale tax.
Oh, they got nothing on Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota at one point was proposing a 900% tax.
Wow.
900% tax. It's not that anymore, but that was the direction that Minnesota was going.
Yeah, so there's New York is still looking. New York is right in between the pre on the street word is they're probably going to drop the flavor ban language out of their bill, but they're still going to keep the 20% wholesale tax in it.
And that's how they do it. That's how they get everybody. Is we're taking, we come at you with the biggest hammer that we can get. That way, when we slap you in the knee with the ball peen hammer, it doesn't look nearly as bad as that sledgehammer did coming at your head.
Yep. Oh, okay. If you guys are going to keep flavors, that's cool. I'll pay the 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just raped.
Yeah. Now you just opened the door, and that's
it.
That's why we tell everybody, fight absolutely everything. Fight absolutely everything. Call your representatives, especially state and local representatives. Call them and tell them, no, I don't want this. And if you support this, I will actively campaign against you. Don't just tell them I'm not going to vote for you. Tell them that you're actively going to campaign against them. These are words that like local and state representatives, like that right there will get their attention. The big time representatives, the Congress and Senate and the president and all that, they could really give two shits about what one individual says. Like it has to, everything at the federal level is so far out of our hands at this point. Like we had our shot to influence policy. That day's gone. That day's
everybody
gone. Whatever's going to happen at the federal level, that's going to happen with us having zero say, because we've proven over and over again we can't come together as a group. We absolutely 100% cannot come together as a group, because 99.99% of people just go buy a bottle of juice, they buy their coils, and they leave. They don't care.
Nope.
They don't care. As long as they're still able to get that, they're fine. And that's the majority of vapors. We cannot reach those guys. The vapors can say anything they want. We cannot reach these people. And so they're not going to be interested.
It's one of the biggest things running around in advocacy. You hear a lot of people, Fig, for example, he was talking, and all of us know, yes, we're talking about advocacy. Yes, we're pushing this, but we all know that we are talking in a finite circle of people.
Yeah.
And the people that have the apathy of going, well, I got my juice, I don't give a shit. And like you said, out the door they go. They don't care.
No, they don't.
They don't care.
You
now,
put all the posters up, say whatever you want to them. They don't care. Like I said, that's 99.99% of vapors. The hobbyists, we're the ones that care.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going after my DIY supplies? Although they're not going after DIY supplies, at least not right now.
Not yet. Not yet. Speaking of taxation,
that's the thing. I'll make one point, but
go ahead.
That's the thing. The hobbyists, they don't want to come after the hobbyists. They don't care. They don't care about people who are vaping on stuff like this. They really don't care. They care about the majority of people, which are the closed system users at this point. Because what, 70 something % of the market is Juul? Like, that's the people they're going after. If they come after the hobbyists, they know that we're gonna pitch a fit, because we're the ones already pitching a fit.
Well, what if the shoe was on the other foot?
If they went after Juul and didn't go after, or if they went after us and they didn't go after Juul?
No, in other words, if we were higher in percentage, do you feel that they would just go to seek who is the biggest?
They go after wherever the major money market is. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Everything comes down to money.
Oh yeah. And it goes,
we all know that.
Down in Florida, what's going on in Florida right now? Isn't there something going on in Florida? They were taxation. They had put what was it? They'd put a public vape ban in with offshore drilling.
Yeah.
And that's just an ugly, dirty, underhanded tactic. Like really, guys? Nobody wants offshore drilling in Florida. Nobody wants that. You don't want to go to Miami Beach and as you're sitting there looking out at the peaceful waves, you've got 5 or 6 offshore rigs sitting out there, just out there in Miami Bay. You don't want to see that. Like, it's just like, so of course people are going to vote no for this bill, and so a public vaping ban gets pushed through because it got piled in, and that's one of the dirtiest things I've ever seen, politics wise, is how they did that.
Now it's funny because in Florida right now, if you guys have been watching the news, or if anybody else is watching or listening has been watching the news in Florida, with cigars being part of, yes, we have to have all of this warning label stuff on everything that we do. Cigar company in Florida goes, well, we make collectible boxes, and the stuff that you want us to put over that would deteriorate our sales. And we've been doing this with machinery and hand rolling. The cigar company got removed.
Oh, yeah.
From the stuff that is happening to the vapor industry.
Because the guy doesn't want a thing sitting on his desk that says, warning, this may cause cancer.
Yep. So they effectively got removed from the T21, a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
So if people aren't seeing that this is becoming a multifaceted screw you campaign, yeah, it's horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
Okay, so a couple more minutes. We got about 15 more minutes before we get out of here. Touch on a few more things. So Before we jump into flavor bans, Fresh, before we jump into flavor bans, how do you feel about Juul and them all of a sudden deciding to take a front seat while we're on the T21? Well, we kind of got off track, but
I'll let Fresh talk about that first.
They have to. They're in the public. They're in the public eye. They're the number one company in the U.S. as far as all of it goes. They have to be on board with any anti-tobacco regulation. Essentially, at this point,
now,
they have to play along with. I'm not going to call them their tobacco overlords, because they still own the majority of the company. Which, good for them. Good for them for figuring that sale out, and being able to squeeze that much money out of Altria and still maintain the control of your company. But obviously, Big Tobacco can lean heavily on Juul, but they have to at this point. They have to. They have to be on board with that sort of thing, with all the negative backlash that they've gotten over the years.
Yes.
They have to be on board.
Now, do you feel it's a business decision, like a marketing strategy, to see how much of a deal that they can get? Like, in other words, hey, if we're on board with this, do you think that there's going to be some, and Mike, you can maybe touch on this, that they're going to get some deals on the back end where they can maybe get some of an easier taxation on their products going forward in the market? No,
I don't see that at all. I mean, they've already gotten exceptions for several of their flavors, and they've already gotten those things that big tobacco lobbyists can make happen for you. But Juul is, they're an incredibly smart company, and everything they've done has been incredibly smart. Pretty much the entire, from their startup, and that's what they are. They're a startup company. And their intention was to sell all along. And they were able to squeeze a whole, 12-point-something billion, like 12.6 billion out of Altria or something like that, for 30% of their market, or 30% of their company. That's absolutely outstanding as far as an internet startup goes. And that's how they've always run this. They're not concerned about anybody else in vapor.
No,
I'll clear that up for everybody right now. If you think Juul cares one lick about anybody else, they don't.
No,
they don't.
Now going back
but they have to be at the forefront of this sort of thing, like the tobacco-21, the flavor bans, anything like that. They're always going to be the first. They're always going to be the first company to do these things. Always going to be the first company. As long as they're as big as they are, they're always going to be the first company to jump on board with these things, because they need the publicity, and they need the public trust / understanding that this company is going to try and do the right thing. And being as big as they are, it's the way it has to go in economics. Like, you have to bend to these things, even if it's not really in your best interest.
Yeah, but in the long run, I feel that they're just going to make more money in the long run, because it's just going to be more of a household name. Juul. What's going to be the first thing you think about with vaping?
They're already a household name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People hardly ever talk about vaping in the news. They're talking about juuling.
Now, going back to the backlash, Mike, before you rebut. Now, going back to the backlash, do you feel that Juul they ever cared about a safer alternative to cigarettes, or they were just in it for the money?
Juul has always been, just like Fresh said, a company that made a product to fit a niche in a market that they would sell later. They have never given two shits about harm reduction. They can claim it all they want, but every step that they have done is just 100% the opposite.
Well, that's my point.
Went in places and did things. Their advertising, when they were doing their advertising, they didn't care about anything. When they joined the VTA, it was only to cover their ass because they knew the FDA was coming after them.
Mm-hmm.
But the FDA came in, and they called in who? Juul, Views, Mark 10, the major big tobacco company, closed pod systems.
Yep.
And they chewed their asses out, and they said, you're either going to fix this, or we're going to take you off the market. Not vapor products as we know them, but closed pod systems. We're going to eradicate you. So yeah, Juul's on the forefront going, yes, we're pro T21 and we're pro taxes. Now, this will tell you how much they give two shits about vapor. Why are they in favor of taxation? because most places will tax on a per mil basis, right?
Mhm.
There's 0.7 mil on a pod.
Yep.
So if they raise it and it's $3 on your 60 mil, they're going to pay 4 cents in tax. They don't give a shit about vapor products. They want you to have to pay the $3 in taxation. Meanwhile, they don't get taxed as much. Funny thing. Demetrius Agrafiotis went to argue the T21 and a taxation in Tennessee. And he actually told them, why don't we tax the content of nicotine per product? And Juul went up in flames about it.
Oh, I bet.
Why? Because they're 50 milligrams, 48.7 milligrams actually per pod. So they can't take it, because then their tax becomes very huge, and the tax that you would actually pay on a 60 mil is nowhere near it. But they don't want that. When you went to the T21 hearing, if anybody was looking down in Kentucky, right at the table, in the middle, you had the senator that was actually proposing the bill. To his right was the lobbyist from Juul, arguing and pressing, yes, we're for 21. To his left was the vice president of Altria, big tobacco company. Now, come on. Everybody knows the vice president of Altria does not get out of bed for shits and grins.
Nope.
He's not just going to go, well, they got a T21 in Kentucky. I'm going to drive myself over there and take part in that. Bullshit. This guy showed up with an agenda, with that senator, with Juul.
Yep.
No, Juul doesn't care and has never cared about tobacco harm reduction.
Okay.
Yep.
Flavor bans. Coming?
Flavor ban.
They coming?
Yeah, at least a partial one on pods. They're, like I said, Juul. I think it's Juul, Blue, Fuse, and I think Mark 10 have gotten exceptions for their flavors. But anything else, you're going to be. It's tobacco, mint, and menthol. It's already on the president's desk. It's just waiting to get signed.
Yeah, it's tobacco, mint, and menthol. Yes, because that's the only thing big tobacco sells.
Yep.
In mass. They don't sell anything like a strawberry mint menthol.
Nope.
And they don't sell anything like a butterscotch. And because vapor is turning around and eroding the shit out of the taxes and the MSA money, yes, big tobacco wants us gone.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's closed systems. If you read what he pushed up, it's on closed systems. So there's not a federal level. Well, there's still Grandma Skeletor, the senator. I believe she's out of Arizona, if I remember correctly. She pushed forward a national level flavor ban, and it was going to be tobacco, mint, and menthol, and that hasn't gone anywhere. It's the same thing that happened. It's the same thing that happens with any extreme measure. In Congress, you can go and look at the percentage that this thing actually has to make it to the floor. Like it's not that this thing has to pass. It's that this makes it to the floor to be heard. And it's like 2%.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But
and
the
so
one that they're pushing now in Congress that was introduced by, of all things, a Republican. I'm worried about that. But that's not a flavor ban. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, flavor bans are going to be state level. I don't think that federally they want to get into fights with states about what is and is what state is going to allow and what their people should be allowing. That's the reason, there's the marijuana fights all over the place as far as the legalization of marijuana, which why it's federally not legal, I don't know, but we've been over that on my show several times. But it's the same type of thing. They want it to be a state issue. They don't want it to be a federal issue.
Now, do you think that they're doing this? It goes back to New York. Do you think that they're doing this to threaten the vaping community with a flavor ban, to push other agenda?
Oh, of course, yeah. No, the bills are always written as worst case scenario, and then when they do finally skate by, it's usually with one or two things that were originally on there that shouldn't have gotten through at all, but people are willing to let those things in just because they don't want the worst case scenario to happen. And that's what the state representatives and governors and all that, that's what they threaten. Like here in Washington, we have Inslee. He's been our governor for a while. At least once a year, he pushes up some absurd tax or some flavor ban or something, just so he can get some other little thing through. And luckily, we've got a really good local advocacy group here called the Pink Lung Brigade. If anybody's ever heard of that, if you're here in Washington, go join the Pink Lung Brigade and give them your money. But they've managed to curb all of it. And so Washington, of all places, as blue as this state is, it's still one of the vape friendliest states. You know, there's certain cities that you have public vape bans on, things like that. But for the most part, the enforcement on that sort of thing is absolutely zero. So it's still a very vape friendly state here. And that's all thanks to local advocacy getting involved. And that's what everybody should do. You should be involved with your local advocacy groups. If they tell you to show up, show up. That's the big thing. Show the fuck up, make some calls.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just make a call. Like I got a message from them and from Vaping with Ken at the same time that said, "Hey, this got proposed. Make a call." Okay, make a call. It took like 3 minutes. I told them my zip code. They forwarded the message on to my representatives. I told them the exact same thing. This is the bill number. If you support this, I will actively campaign against you. Okay, this is the next bill. If you support this, I will actively campaign against you. That's all I want to say to these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I oppose this. I am a one-issue voter.
Yep. I'm a one-issue voter. If you support this, I will actively campaign for an opponent for it. I will not support you in any way, shape, or form if you do this. And every time things get shut down, they usually get shut down before they make it to the floor. We've had it hit the floor a couple times, and then, like 100 people show up and they're like, "Ah, crap." So,
and that's what happened out in the island out in New York.
Yeah.
You had Matthew Elliott come out and he picked up a bunch of people and they went out and they actually showed up, and they spoke about here's why, here's what, and it got tabled.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, we know that those things are going to be coming back around, just like San Francisco right now is headed for their flavor ban,
Oh, that's official. That's official. They banned flavors.
Yep.
So,
I mean, in San Francisco's case, there was only like 3 vape shops in San Francisco City proper to start with. So they put 3 businesses. They put 3 companies out of business, and I'm not sure where that fits in their agenda because they've always been one of the big harm reduction capitals. But I don't know. Maybe they're facing so much backlash from what all their harm reduction things have gotten them at this point that they're unwilling to support something. But it really didn't make sense what was going on in San Francisco, at all.
Yeah, San Francisco right now is going through, and they're trying to push an all-out ban on e-cigarettes, period.
Yeah.
They want them all gone.
That's next. Is e-cigs gone.
All right. So, 2022.
Okay.
It's actually down to 2021.
2021. Yep. Okay.
We backed it up a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So where do we stand on the PMTAs, and how is it going to affect it's affecting us now.
You're looking at 2 things. The first one, the harmful constituents, they're called HPHC documentation and testing that has to be done by anybody that's manufacturing and putting it in a bottle. Okay, that was supposed to be done this year. Gottlieb pushed it back until 8/8 next year of 2020. So if you don't have your HPHC testing done by 2020, by FDA standards, you're done. Off the market, go home, you're done selling. If you do manage to get that done, and they're talking anywhere between $3,500 and $10,000 per flavor to have it tested, okay, because you have to have the actual flavor, every SKU that's on it, every nic level has to be tested. If they actually do get their HPHCs done, then you have to run the hurdle of the PMTA, pre-market tobacco authorization. No one and no product to date has been approved for a PMTA.
Yep.
0. Snuffs came in, if I'm not mistaken, they came in on an equivalency. They never actually got their PMTA. So when you're looking at the end date of 2021 for vapor products as we know it, that come in a bottle, you go to the store, you buy it. 2021, if you don't have your PMTA, that's it.
Yep. Off the
There
market.
will be no juice on the market, period.
Yep.
Now, we'll get to you as being a business owner in the vapor industry, but how do you feel that will affect, first off, how do you feel that will affect the DIY community with, we talked about this offline, with one shots?
It's very much going to be a trickle-down effect. You know, how many major manufacturers are not going to be buying as much nicotine, flavoring, PG, VG, whatnot, because they're no longer able to sell in the United States? Now, regardless, you've got the large players, you know, that are worldwide. But that's only a handful out of what you see at your vape shop. There's only a handful that actually sell outside of the U.S. The rest of them are all concentrated 50 states.
Mm-hmm.
So when they are shut out of the market and they stop buying in bulk what they're buying, they're either going to start to raise the prices because now the companies that sell flavors, and you and I spoke about this before, David. Yes, these are the same kind of flavors that are used in bakery, confectionery, things like that. But when these companies stop selling in mass the way that they do, and this becomes a smaller amount of money that they're getting, their first inclination is going to be to raise prices on all the flavors.
Yeah, but
because they're not going to stand by and go, oh, we've had a $14 million drop this year. That's okay. We'll absorb it.
Yeah, but I didn't disagree with you on that point, but the majority of the money that these companies make are from the food industry. We're just crumbs to them. So I really don't see it hurting their bottom line and for them to, in turn, raise prices on us if that's the case.
You're talking about like Capella and...
Yeah,
Capella, Flavor Art.
The big dogs.
Yeah.
Is the FDA going to come by and say, now, this is not flavors, but now we're going to talk nicotine for a minute. Yeah. Are they going to come by and say, now you have to have a manufacturer's license to purchase nicotine?
That's entirely possible.
It is. Here's why. Back again, if you go back to the FDA, let me find where they had their press announcement at.
We're coming up on time, too. I know you guys got stuff to do. So
this was back in March of 2018. They came out with a nicotine level for combustible cigarettes, okay, which doesn't cover vapor at all. But during the process that they were talking about this, they brought up the fact that they were concerned that smokers would go to a vape shop and buy something like a pack of Sapphire, nicotine, or a nicotine shot and lace their cigarettes with it. So the FDA is already concerned about liquid nicotine a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So the chances of them saying you've got to have a manufacturer's license to buy nicotine now, wholeheartedly true. And I would almost guarantee that it's going to come across. If I were a betting man, I'd bet on it.
Yeah.
That's going to impact DIY.
All right. So 2 things before we get out of here. Most of the information that's getting put out by the FDA, local governments, national governments, how much of it do you feel is fact, fiction? How much of it's false? How much is it true? Goes back to the seizures. Do you think it's just is adding to the fuel for them to ban a life-saving technology? Mike?
Yeah.
Fresh.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think let's go with the old e-cigarette number. I think 95% of the fear information that you put out, all the negative vaping campaign that's out there, I think that's a generous guess. I think it's probably higher than that, but 95% of it's false.
I would agree. False and fear mongering.
Yeah.
Take a look at tobacco-free kids and any of the anti-tobacco zealots
Truth
that
Initiative
are out there all
That's a
get
bunch
their
of horse
money
shit, but go ahead.
they all get their money from tobacco funding. So if we cut out big tobacco and reduce it, their funds get reduced.
Yep.
Their job. So yes, it's false. It's a bullshit narrative, especially when it comes to seizures.
Yeah. So real quick, I didn't get a chance to give you a shout out, Mike, before we get out of here. Tell everybody what you do and how you do it. I know all about
Usually
you.
I sit here with my thumb up my ass.
Right?
Oh, Thursday nights I run Vaping in the Mic. It's a Facebook, and I've got the things copied over to YouTube. But I run an hour live show that I talk with various people in the industry. Just like Larry Sharp was one of the people that I spoke with. Coming up on the 18th is a representative from New Hampshire state representative, Mr. Osborne. Next week is like Lindsey Stroud. And Lindsey carries all these things about what state bills are going through, but that's what I do on Thursday nights.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your juice line, even though we mostly are DIY here in the chat.
That's where I started, was in DIY.
Yeah.
Years ago, being able to mix. And finally, my boy came. He's now 21, but he was just in high school, senior in high school, turns around, he goes, Dad, I don't want people smoking in my car. Can we make some juice so these guys can vape? They can vape in my car, but they can't smoke. Can we do that to help people? I'm not going to tell my son no. Absolutely. So we started Two Stone Vaping, and we've kind of gotten, we're still moving along, but you know, it's one of those things. It's a passion project. We've been picked up, have a couple of overseas accounts, but we're still growing.
All right. Any closing words for everybody in the chat or anybody that's going to watch us on the replay? From you, Mike. Mike, you good?
If Fresh covered one of the biggest things, and it doesn't matter if you're in the DIY community, if you are in the manufacturing side, if you are a vape shop owner, when bills come up in your state or in your local area and somebody says, we need your help, make a phone call, write an email, or show up and give your own testimony. Please get off your ass and do something about it. Apathy will kill all of it. If we have nothing but apathetic people, we're all going to have a problem.
Awesome.
And again, doesn't matter whether it's DIY, me, shop, who cares?
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Anything? Got anything?
I'm going to be live here in a little bit. Going to be doing Fresh from the Kitchen. We're reevaluating our peanut butter and jellies, and then if we decide that that's that we've gotten it, then we'll move on. If we haven't gotten it, we'll whip up another batch. But peanut butter and jelly, one of those infamous profiles. We've got some new flavors out that are helping the process along. So
all right,
that's fun. And then Juice Man put a point out there. They can force you to get a business license for flavors and VG and PG. It would be very tough. It'd be very, very tough for the FDA to get that past anybody, because VG and PG are used in so many other things. It's the same thing with nicotine. The tobacco manufacturer, are they going to force every farmer that uses nicotine as a fairly reliable pesticide or a means of controlling like bees and things like that? Are they going to force all those people to get a tobacco manufacturer's license? It's a harrowing prospect for them. So, you know, it's something to think about, and it's something to keep an eye on. And you'll absolutely want to make phone calls and get in touch, but it's not something that needs to be in the back of your mind right now. Right now, you need to worry about what's going on in your city. You need to worry about what's going on in your state, because they will put a fist up your ass faster than the FDA will. Your city and your city and state governments. So get involved locally. Keep an eye on what's going on at the federal level, but for the most part, those things like licenses and things like that, that's way down the road. That's way down the road. That's not the fight for today. So just get involved locally, everybody. Be involved. As I always say, everybody be beautiful to each other. Educate, advocate, be good for this community. Be
I was
good.
gonna tell you to say that in closing, but I want to thank everybody for coming on today and joining Mike Peterson and Fresh with us today. They really educated us today on a lot of the problems that are going on in today in vaping. You know, it's just the FDA versus us all the time, and it's great that we have highly educated people on the subject to come on today and explain it for you guys. Other than that, guys, thanks so much again for stopping on, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.